So unfortunately, this past Thursday, there was another school shooting that occurred on a university campus here in the state of Florida. It happens to be the second one in 11 years at FSU at the hands of a one called Phoenix Ikner, 20-year-old white male. We don't have a lot of information that has been gleaned as to the guy's motive, but there were definitely some interesting notes that I picked up on, being a law enforcement professional and former SWAT operator, that I took into consideration. I was really paying attention to. Let's take a look and see what we're talking about here as we find out how this all went down.
Tallahassee police say there was no connection between 20-year-old Phoenix Ikner and the victims. He was shot by police and injured in the shooting and will have to spend a significant amount of time in the hospital. Officials say he will then be transferred to a detention center and face charges up to and including first-degree murder. 2 people were killed in Thursday's shooting on campus, which remained closed Friday. 5 were also injured and being treated at a local hospital. Earlier, officials there gave an update on their conditions.
We do feel that all will make a full recovery. 2 of them are possibly going home today, which we're extremely proud of.
CBS News reporter Katie Weiss is in Tallahassee with more. And Katie, I understand you just spoke with a victim in the hospital. What did they tell you?
Well, Lindsay, good evening. A glimmer of hope right now this evening after meeting with this remarkable, inspiring young woman who is in just wonderful spirits despite everything she has endured. She is an urban planning graduate student. Her name's Madison Askins. She's attended both undergrad and graduate
school. So this is the student that was actually shot in the rear end as she was attempting to flee in close proximity of the shooter himself.
Right here in Tallahassee, just a few minutes from the university's campus. And I want to tell you, her story is just chilling. She says she was first shot in the behind, and then her mind immediately kicked into survival mode. Take a listen.
When he got next to me, he reloaded. I heard the clip being changed. I'm familiar with guns in my household. Both my parents are retired Marines, so I've been on a shooting range before. So I believe I heard it. I believe I heard that clip being changed there, followed by him saying, "Keep running."
Okay, so obviously some kind of a sociopathic bent there. If he's reloading on the move, maybe a little bit of a firearms proficiency, maybe a little tactical proficiency as well. Who knows? Open air environment, shooting people as they're running and moving.
Being more somber, he was just being neutral. She said that lack of empathy, that lack of emotion is what was most striking.
Yeah, cold-hearted killer. He's just basically opportunistic, just picking people off as he can.
To the person who did this to you, who put you in this hospital bed, what would you say? She says, "I have nothing left to say to him. He's a bug to me." Those are her words. Now, she wants to thank both police, responders who came and helped out and really neutralized the shooter quickly.
Good job.
And also healthcare workers here
FHP,
at the
Tallahassee
for
PD,
their quick response.
surrounding agencies, and FBI is involved.
She needs one more before she can go home. Lindsay?
Grateful that she's okay. Katie Weiss, thank you. Anna Schechter joins us now. She's the CBS News senior coordinating producer for the Crime and Public Safety Unit. Anna, we're getting a more clear picture of a timeline leading up to the events. What can you tell us?
That's right. We now know from police that the suspect arrived at around 11 a.m. and went into the parking garage of the university in his own vehicle. And he spent about an hour getting in and out of the vehicle, appearing, according to the surveillance footage that police reviewed, to be sort of preparing. Then around 11:51, he entered onto the campus. And just a few minutes later, at 11:56 or 57, he started shooting. It only took a few minutes for police to apprehend him.
So the shooter shows up at the parking garage. So obviously he's got the hostile intent. As he gets proximal to the campus, he's got the presentability. In other words, he has a game plan that he planned to execute on, but potentially he spent about a good 50 minutes just drawing up the nerve to do what he had wanted to do. Most likely, he had an array of weapons in that vehicle, and he opted for some reason to take the handgun, potentially maybe a shotgun, because I did see a report where there was a mention of a 12-gauge shotgun potentially being involved. But he finally decides to go ahead and get on the move, and he enters the campus and starts shooting. And, you almost have to think about, hey, once that stimulus gets kicking off and you're in a position like that where you're in a building and, you hear what sounds like loud snaps, pops, maybe even like construction occurring. And if it sounds like it's unusual, that should at least perk your interest and make you getting into a mode of situational awareness, readiness type of thing, where you're beginning to scan and you're really focusing in on your environment. Kind of get out of the oblivious mode of just your routine lifestyle or routine activity, and really start paying attention, and don't disregard that spidey sense that kicks in that tells you, hey, something seems amiss here, something doesn't seem right. I may need to get the hell out of here like ASAP and start scanning for threats. It appears that some students did in fact shelter in place once stimulus was perceived. Others decided to run, possibly because they were panicking and maybe they thought they had enough distance between themselves and the shooter to where it was tactically feasible for them to do that. But just keep in mind, God forbid you would ever find yourself in a situation like this, that I've always said this to the people that I've trained in my profession, that either you're really close to the adversary, which affords you a, quote, measure of safety, because you can smother the attack, you can preempt the attack from occurring or getting momentum against you because of the pre-assault indicators that you more readily perceive because you're such in close proximity, or you have significant distance where you can turn and run, or you can evade and not even have to get into the engagement. But it's that kind of twilight zone, that middle ground, where you really have to make a decision whether to run, turn your back on the threat and not know what it's doing, whether it's tracking you or not, or to hide and get on the phone, dial 911, give updates, or basically try to set up some kind of an ambush situation and assess physically what is going on and determine, hey, does he have a long gun? Is there two of them? If it's just a handgun, is there a lull in the fire? Does it sound like his gun jammed? And if you're in close proximity to somebody that has a gun that jams, let me tell you, unless they are a very high level operator or even a firearms enthusiast, they're not necessarily always going to be in the heat of the moment or in the adrenaline, that spike that they're in, going to be able to retrieve a spare magazine and put that weapon back into battery without at least a couple seconds of time elapsing, where you might be able to get a chair, throw a book bag, smother him, jump on him, and fight for your life. So that is a contingency that I don't think we talk enough about, is that fight option, where if you can get yourself enough survival, primal type motivation to take the fight to the adversary, you may realize later on that is what not only saved your life, but potentially saved other people's lives as well.
Right at 12 noon, he was shot by police, and police said yesterday at the press conference that they gave him directions that he did not follow, and that is why they fired and injured him.
Yesterday, they had also said there's no indication that the suspected shooter had fired at police. Is that still the case?
That's still the case,
okay.
Yes.
What are you learning about the victims who died?
Well, the two men that died both worked in some capacity at the university. One for a vendor that provided food services, and the other man also worked for a vendor on campus. He was 45 years old. We just learned of his identity, also a father. And then the other man, Roberto, was 57 years old, and he was a father of a daughter, a husband. His brother posted to social media. So we're getting a little bit more information about the picture. It's a range of victims. We learned from the university president that some of those injured who are in the hospital are students who have survived. Everyone in the hospital, doctors expect to make a full recovery. So that, of course, includes the suspect. You have 5 victims injured by gunshots, and then the 6th person in the hospital currently is the suspect, who is also wounded him by police gunfire.
So what more do we know about Phoenix Ikner? Any possible motive, and what happens next in the investigation?
In terms of motive, that's a challenge. Investigators are still gathering information from his digital footprint and also interviewing not just the eyewitnesses, but anyone who was in contact with him. That includes, of course, his stepmother and father, but also his birth mother. We've learned overnight that there was a contentious relationship between his birth mother and his father and stepmother. Lots of legal filings going back and forth between them over many years. They're also going to try to find anyone that he was talking to about potential plans. At this time, we have no information speaking to motive. All we have are a few statements that he made, for example, to a school newspaper in January, talking about the upcoming inauguration. But it's hard to tell. I read his quote very carefully, talking about Trump about to take office. And you couldn't really tell one way or the other. I couldn't glean exactly, if there was anything in that. And we actually reached out to multiple people who were classmates. What we've learned is he was quiet, reserved, but there are other reports that he would kind of stir things up and espouse conspiracy theories in class and upset some of his fellow students at FSU.
Anna Schechter, thank you.
Of course.
In 20 years of being a cop in Pinellas County, I tell you what, well, first of all, I've personally responded to several alleged active assailant events where, there was a full licensed sirens run to the scene. On one occasion, I had to quickly gather up some people to form a contact team and begin to really assess the situation. How many people were still out and about floating around? Where was the last known location of the potential suspect? It happened to be one of the music buildings at this high school, collegiate high school in St. Pete, that this particular incident that I'm referring to happened. And it's chaos. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of communication, people stepping on each other on the radio. It's a lot of fog and a lot of friction, like Sid Heel talks about a lot in his book, Sound Doctrine, and also Field Command. So it's for law enforcement, a lesson learned about this particular thing is just always be very cognizant of the fact that this type of incident can occur at any point in time. So make sure your gear is always up to snuff, right? It's properly maintained, that you have it readily accessible, that you are scanning channels so that you can pick up on that call for assistance that may come out from a neighboring agency, and so that you have situational awareness as to where your location is, what's the most direct route to get to the situation to be of assistance and to help. When you look at this situation here, the guy's a quiet dude, possible conspiracy theorist, a 20-year-old white male who is a college student, so he's not somebody that is on the radar necessarily as a convicted felon who's being tracked by probation and parole. He's not somebody that we know of had some kind of history of being taken into custody for evaluation under a Baker Act, or that he was a prior service member or had some super duper type of training. But as you can tell from the different incidents that have occurred in the past, that's not a requirement, nor does that always fit the bill of these kind of attacks. It's usually someone that, when it's all said and done and the investigation begins to unravel, you typically find out things like, there were some signs, there was some weird behavior, there were some indications that maybe he was upset or he was about to explode. People would describe him as a stuffer. So if you know of somebody that's going through a hard time, it's a personal friend of yours or even a student that it may be next door to you in your next cubicle over or seat next over to you, be sure to, see something, say something, and make sure that if you have that rapport with them, offer some assistance, right? So a lot of people are going through tough times nowadays. I like how they kind of point out the fact that this guy is a sheriff's deputy's son, like that has something to do with his potential motive. I don't know that it does. I would be kind of surprised that single factor itself was something that was part and parcel as to what he decided to do at this campus. But hey, I don't know. It could come out as being the case. But what I do know is that we all, as citizens, as officers, and as parents who have college-aged kids, we need to know that this is a reality, this is a potential threat, and we need to indoctrinate our kids to know, hey, be situationally aware, be plugged in, be in condition yellow. Don't have your head in your phone when you're walking around campus. Pay attention to the pre-assault indicators. Pay attention as you're walking into buildings. If there's somebody that stands out that looks really unnerved, or that is stressed or sweating, or that is overly dressed in long clothing, maybe to attempt to conceal weapons. If somebody's hanging around in a parking lot for an hour when everybody else is pulling up in a parking spot and quickly exiting their car and hustling off to class, that might be something that you might want to pass on to security, who then might pass it on to the person that's monitoring the surveillance systems, who then might pass it on to somebody in law enforcement as a liaison of the campus that can at least go and check on it, maybe end up intervening potentially as a suspicious vehicle call before all of this gets undetected and a potential assailant is allowed free rein to walk into a campus unabated. So, tragic incident for sure, 100%. But this is just another reminder why we all, as citizens, need to be, number one, plugged in, situationally aware wherever we go, make ourselves hard targets, instead of prey. And I would say another reason why campuses in this state of Florida really need to consider following suit with other states that exist currently, where they allow concealed weapons to be permitted on their campuses for the protection of everybody. Because potentially, if there was that kind of a mandate in place at FSU, or that permission rather in place at FSU, potentially somebody could have intervened as a student who was of age to have a firearm, who was lawfully allowed to have the firearm, and could intervene and neutralize the threat and save people's lives. So anyway, stay hard, stay ready, and stay dangerous. But most of all, stay blessed. We'll see you in the next video.